Well, my name is not Anne Brigida. Anne is, as you maybe can tell, but Anne has been caught up, I'm afraid, and I'm just going to start the thing off for her. So Anne is our Director of Standards, but I've been involved with standards with AVIXA ever since we got started. I've just come back onto the Standards Steering Committee to chair and moderate that. And the purpose of the presentation is to give you some idea of the standards in action. I'm not going to keep to the script and script exactly, but I have some additional thoughts when Anne and I were discussing this presentation as she was preparing this. So just to run through a little bit of the background to us as an organisation. Oh, Anne, you're here. I'm just going to keep talking. You come up. So at AVIXA, we run a variety of events. We run trade shows. We do market research. We do certification, and we do training. But standards is a really important part of the mix, and of course I'm biased because I'm heavily involved with that. But that standards has actually become a very important part of my working life, and we'll be showing you in a moment some of the people and what it's meant to them and how effective the standards has been to them. So, at AVIXA, we represent the Pro AV community, and what this means is that we use these shows as a way to generate revenue so that we can do good for the industry and that we can provide and fund these educational events and in particular standards. We started standards some time ago. For me, it's quite funny because when I first came into volunteer with AVIXA in the early 2000s, I was told one thing that would happen was that AVIXA would never ever become a standards organisation. We were involved with best practice, and then what seemed like 5 minutes later, we became a standards organisation. And that has been, really quite a tremendous ride. I think that, my thoughts about this and in preparation for Anne speaking is that, when we first started to produce standards, we really thought that like building the better mousetrap, the world would beat a path to our door. But in fact, what we've found is that it's actually quite a complex thing where we've had it's been really important for us not just to produce the standards, but to produce them in a way that's meaningful to the industry and to the end users, and to get them to be adopted. But as we have limited time, and as the star of the show is here now, I'm going to hand over to Anne.
Hello, everyone. My apologies for the tardiness. My cab actually tried to take a shortcut and ended up going the very opposite direction. So thank you, Greg, for filling in. As he mentioned, AVIXA is we're a half trade association and half society. It is the trade association piece that we use when we develop standards. So I actually brought some standards for you today so that you could have a look at the words that we're talking about. But we're not really going to be concentrating so much today on the actual piece of paper. All right, the documents have been written and they've been very carefully vetted, word for word for word. But what we want to focus on today is how you use these pieces when you understand the power of what's inside the words, okay? We have, Greg has told you why we are doing this. We have 12 standards in publication right now. we'll skip ahead since I'm a little late, I apologize. I want you to know that we have global participation in every task group, so we do not want these to be American-centric. There is someone here from Denmark who has been working on them. Greg is here from the UK. Please talk to the people that are here that have developed these standards so that you understand what it is, how you can use these. They're wonderful pieces of paper. I have story after story of people telling me that they have waived the standard in front of clients. Or if they're the client, they have waived the standard in front of the integrator to say, this is what I want you to do, because the user experience is what is going to be improved. So I won't go through every one of these. I'll put these here. You can have a look. There are a few of them for you. What we're going to do today, I want you to meet some friends. They couldn't be with us, but it's very important to them. You can see two of them working here, that the message is here for you. So we're not talking about the paper today. We're going to talk about what these people have dedicated hours and hours of their lives to bring that message to you, to raise the bar for not just the whole industry, which it does. It improves your credibility with the other people in the building trades. It increases your efficiency. Don't take my word for it. We're going to talk about the power, okay? This is Jason Antonori. He is from TELUS in Canada. TELUS is a very large, they are a 60,000 employee company, publicly traded in Canada, billions in assets. All right, huge company. We're going to take examples from different countries, different size companies, so that you can see that this is you. Everybody I show you here, they were just like you. They started out and they improved. So Jason is also a certified, AVIXA has an ISO 7024 certification through our accrediting body, ANSI, for certified technology specialties. You can get a general certification first. Jason has gone on to get his specialty in design. So we did an article about one of his projects. This is, I'm going to read to you something from the article. It says, the presence of standards adds a level of professionalism to our work. And I swear I did not prompt him to say any of these things. Standards provide end users with a benchmark where they get what they expected and can test and verify what's being installed and what they've purchased is exactly as described. Jason took the time to read and implement the existing standards, including the Audiovisual Systems Performance Standard. So here's what he said. Once the room is up and running, because everything is so well documented, AV personnel can respond to any problems and address failures quickly and efficiently. He says about standards, because we hear this a lot, some see it as adding work, but it always adds value. Working within the standards separates great AV companies from just good AV companies. Okay. He has taken the time. His fluency with standards recently led to a big win for his company. This was back in 2015. So we have a clip. Do we have the video clip of the installation that they did? Do you know? Is there a video by any chance? This is a piece put out by SportCheck. That's good. Little issue with sizing. What I wanted you to see toward the end, but we don't have time, is the AR and VR that they were using back in 2013. This and other projects that Jason worked on earned Antonori and his team the 2014 Best Retail Digital Signage Award and the 2013 Screen Media Integration Award. And he says that none of it would be possible without using standards. This is Jay Fernetovich. Is Tim Trost here? I met his boss, Tim Trost. He works for LeGrand Middle Atlantic, and Tim was very involved. We were creating a rack building standard, and Tim moderated that standard. Through Tim, I met Jay, and Jay is working now with the rack design. He's been with Middle Atlantic LeGrand for probably 15, 20 years. So I wrote to everybody, and I said, can you tell me some stories? And this is what Tim said. Jay and I are happy to help provide information to your people from a manufacturer's perspective. Any manufacturers here? Okay. Standards add credibility to our training sessions. Oh, this is a picture. Let me see if I can go back. I knew Jay wouldn't like this picture, so I added this picture. This is him with his team. It's the one with the stripes. Standards add credibility to our training sessions, and they drive attendance. Has anyone here ever been to a Middle Atlantic training session? Anyone use Middle Atlantic? Okay. You will see here that they have adopted the rack building standard, and they use it to foster innovation and as a differentiator. They say we promote standards in our trade show booth to illustrate to the community how we support best practices, and it is a differentiator for us from our competitors. This is Tom Mullins. Tom is a certified technology specialist with a specialty in design. Tom is out in Seattle, and I asked him to send me anything that he had where he's using standards, because he used them all the time, and he sent me this to read to you. This is a 225-seat lecture hall for a biomed research facility. The room will be used for research presentations and linked to other institutions and researchers via video teleconferencing. The client was interested in color accuracy of the image, but the architect was concerned mostly about price, aesthetics, and retaining as much wall space for whiteboards below the display as possible. Using Revit, we provided our typical sightline studies and created some renderings of the space at that stage in the design. The first set of renderings show the screen at the elevation requested by the architect and shows what a person seated in a wheelchair at the front left of the room would have to endure as a result of the placement of that image. In the second set of renderings, we pulled the display down to minimize the elevation viewing angle of the front rows. While we won the argument, ultimately, the client won by getting a room that was much more useful to them and met their program goals. This was all based on the display image size standard. He, in essence, waved the piece of paper in front of the architects, but he showed them. He didn't put the words in front of them or demand them in a spec. He actually did the renderings. So this is a rendering, the first rendering of the where the architect wanted placement of the image. This is the view as if you would be that person sitting in the left front of the screen. As you can imagine, it's a pretty uncomfortable view. Tom was able to take these renderings, use the information in the standard, and show the architect what the issue was. The architect gladly made the changes, by the way. This shows you proper placement of the screen based on the standard. Tom understood the power. It's the power of the standards and how you choose to use them. He understood what the standard did and how it could convince, standard as convincer, that what he was saying was credible and right. It has a powerful effect on the user experience. This is Greg Jefferies. You met Greg. You still have your mic, Greg? A little tough. Well, I am unsure what Greg told you about himself, but he's very modest, so I don't know that he told you he won the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015 from Installation Magazine. He was president of AVIXA. He is currently the steering committee chairperson and is he has understood the power of standards for so long that he was one of the people who started the program. So we owe him a great debt of gratitude. Greg is the founder of Visual Displays Limited. You can reach out to him anytime. He is very generous with his time and expertise. Greg understands that standards also affect your service, and he has parlayed a lot of what is in these standards into services that he offers his clients. He and his team have elevated the user experience for everyone that they work with. This is just a small listing of some of the standards that are on that the team offers. They know that standards underpin that service excellence, and they drive that user experience. They incorporate those standards then into their daily practices, and this is something that every one of us can do. All right, Luke Jordan. I met Luke Jordan quite a while ago. He and his family own a very small business. So now we've come from very large business to very small family business in Texas. Luke and his family they were excellent, had a great reputation. They wanted to increase their reputation. And so Luke got his certification. He started out with his general CTS and then got his specialty in install. And he knew that there was more. So that he downloaded 2 standards, just 2, the performance verification standard and the documentation standard. And then he sat with his team and they worked out the method that they would use to elevate the experience for their clients and improve their credibility. Luke took one of the tools that AVIXA provides. It is a template, and the team worked and they tailored the template to their needs. The template has a lot of features that is another session we can talk about later. Suffice to say that the team took the time to use the tool. They created these reports that they could give to their clients throughout the process of the project, and astoundingly, they reduced their callbacks by 41%. I don't know about you, it's impressive to me. And what that tells me is that the standards are working, that the words that are on that page when they're taken off and used are working to do exactly what they want. This gives his company more time to focus on user experience, on innovation. We'll talk about that later. It also had a side benefit, and I did not clip everyone. I stole these from their website. They won Texas Best Family Business. They've won numerous awards based on this excellence. And Luke will tell you it's because of the standards. This is Lance Feldenkreis. Lance works for an IT company. So now we've gone from large company, small company. This isn't even our native domain. He was hired by this IT company to bring an AV department with him, and guess what he brought? In 2 years actually, they went from being nothing in that IT department to winning awards. They were on the SCN Top 50 Integrators, and they've been there for the past 3 years. Lance credits standards for that, and he gave me quite a few examples. But what I want to do is move along. Will be happy to share those with you. Suffice to say, it improved their customer experience. It is the backbone of everything his department is doing. But I wanted to read something to you from Rodrigo. Rodrigo Sanchez Pazhani is the lead AV, technical lead for King's College in the UK. And as I mentioned, I reached out to ask people for some words to you about how to get started, and this is what he wanted to tell you. In my case, I was not initially convinced about standards. Anyone here I have not convinced yet? Okay, well, he was not. I was not initially convinced about standards. In fact, I was quite critical of them. I believed standards stifle creativity and make projects convoluted. I was wrong. Because of life and its funny sense of irony, I was assigned to a team with a task to review, design, and implement a new AV standard for King's College London. This was the intention to homogenize the user experience across the university. The initial standard was not much more than a shopping list of equipment and a lot of waffle, more like a contract, but I saw the potential the document had, and it gave me a starting point. Using AVIXA standards has allowed us to concentrate on being creative and innovative. Over the years, the document had changed, and it has incorporated AVIXA standards. He said more of an overview. It went from being more of an overview of a good practice and behavior that we expect from people to a solid contract. Why? Using AVIXA standards has allowed us to concentrate on being creative and innovative. Now we don't worry about how to label a cable or what size the screen is. We just use the standards. Our energy focuses on what we do best, design. Let me try to dig deeper with an example, he says. Before we had incorporated the standard, we used to spend hours in meetings deciding what size a screen to use. This was difficult because everybody had a different opinion. Using the standard removes the opinion. One less meeting, many productive hours. The use of standards has allowed us to be more flexible, not less, as we standardize the user experience and our ideas. I hope this gave you a little idea of how powerful the standards are when you take those words from the page. What are we doing now? We are moving forward. This year, 7 standards have been translated into German. Many of them are in Spanish and Portuguese. We had 153,000 people download a calculator that we have provided as a tool to help you figure out those image sizes, but we are never finished. Standards are reviewed once every 5 years at a minimum, and in that review, we need people from all over the world who have used them to tell us what's wrong with them. We need people to join those task groups to help us make a better standard if it is one that needs to be revised, and I am hoping that that is you. What do you do now? I would ask that you start by downloading the standard. And I am going to put in a plug for AVIXA. If you are a premium or elite member of AVIXA, these standards are free. If you are not, the standards are $75 a piece. I believe a premium membership in Europe is 99 euros. Obviously a deal, a great deal. Start by downloading the standard that you think will speak most to your company business model. And take that standard with your team and read it and understand it and absorb it. And if you have any questions, please email me. Create some process, some program, some checklist. There is nothing in the standard. There are conformance forms that are there. Standards are voluntary. Pick out of them what you need. Okay? If your client is not saying to you, you have to conform to the standard and I want this form, take out of the words what it is you need that's going to help you create a better business model so that you can elevate the user experience, because that's a win-win for everyone. As I mentioned, there are people who have spent hours and hours getting to get this information to you. Share it with your clients. If you're the client, share it with your integrator, share it with your designer. Test it and measure it. No one is perfect and neither are we. If you see something in a standard, I have a folder that says note to self in with every standard. And as your emails come in, I put that in there so that the next group that is looking at the standard can fix it if it's broken. But we don't know until we get data from you to say, I tried this 10 times, it didn't work, right? And tell me why. Give us feedback. Standards@avixa.org. Easy to remember. Every word that you send will be considered. Public review on every standard is at least 45 days, with the exception of standards that are created outside of our third-party accredited process. We do a town hall for those, and those are a lot of fun because you get to give us your comments live. Next year, we'll be in Barcelona. And here's what I'd ask that you do in that year. Download one standard, read it with your teams, see how you can use it in your business. I know that Greg uses one of the standards and does assessments for his clients. He'll go in and tell you whether or not your screen has the right contrast. What do you think that does to build the client trust and relationship? All right, next year, we have a year. I've reserved this spot for you, and I hope that next year I'll be telling your story just like I did Lance. Thank you for coming. Enjoy the show.